You're listening to the Trading Bear podcast. This is episode 16, The Daily Show.
Mystery player. Position.
Forward.
Start price.
£1.21.
Current price.
£6.09.
PB.
18p.
MB.
0.
Dividend yield.
2.9%.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining again. In the news today, Champions League semi-finals take place with Manchester City hosting Schalke. They currently hold a 3-2 advantage over the first leg. And Juventus hosts Atletico Madrid, trailing after the first leg 2-0. While Atletico play Juventus, their City rivals Real appear to be targeting a double raid on Neymar and Mbappe. Florentino Perez, Real Madrid's chairman, was quoted today as saying, "Perhaps we could do something with Mbappe because Zidane is French, but right now the focus is on a strong finish to the season." Now, signing one of those players would be a real statement of intent. Signing both of them, I'm not even sure that's feasible within FFP rules. And finally in the news today, Declan Rice is set to be named the Irish Young Player of the Year this Sunday after opting to play for England just a few weeks ago. Let's jump straight into today's risers and fallers then. And our first riser is a player currently playing in tonight's Champions League matchups, and it's Raheem Sterling from Manchester City. He's gone up 12p today and now sits at £8.92. And after seemingly being the forgotten man for a few months, he's back in the headlines once more after his superb hat-trick against Watford at the weekend in Man City's 3-1 win over the Hornets. He also has the Nations semi-finals coming up in the summer with England, and I think if the tiered BB, or the tiered MB rather, is brought in, then I think he could be one of these players that benefits from that. So all in all, I think this is the logical rise and a good buy to make at this time. If he can end the season well, he might even be linked with a move to Real Madrid. Certainly his name was mentioned a few times last summer, along with the Neymars and your Kanes and Hazards. And talking of Hazard, Eden Hazard is today's second riser, and he's gone up 10p to his current price of £13.36. And again, it's a case of being largely forgotten for the last few months and scoring a goal in the recent weekend matches, and the traders suddenly realise he exists again. This time he scored a late equaliser against Wolves. Wolves were very unlucky. I thought they played very well, and the match finished 1-1, with Eden Hazard once more rescuing Chelsea from another quite poor performance. For how much longer is he going to do this? How much longer can he rescue Chelsea every match almost single-handedly? I think this summer could be very interesting. Hazard himself is 28 years old now. He's in the prime of his career. He's been constantly asked the question all season long, and a few months ago he stated that he did not want any regrets at the end of his career. Now read into that what you want, but after 7 years at Chelsea, including some very successful years there, he may just feel like the time is now right to move on. And certainly the papers seem to agree here in England, and they make Eden Hazard Zidane's number one target for the summer. It certainly looks like one of the big transfer stories of the summer. And for that reason, he may be just one of the popular buys to buy next week during the share split, and indeed as we head on through into the summer. One potential big caveat to any move, though, is of course Chelsea's looming transfer ban. Now remember, they were denied the right to appeal, so as it stands they will be banned for the next 2 transfer windows, and this of course would have a huge impact as to what Hazard does in the summer, what Chelsea will do with him. Now his contract expires next year, so can they really afford to lose out on 70, 80, maybe even £100 million for the sake of 1 year? Who knows, he might just stay. There is precedent of this, of course, looking abroad into the Spanish league, where Antoine Griezmann stayed at Atletico after Atletico themselves received a transfer ban. Griezmann was linked with a move to all the top clubs, including Manchester United, Manchester City, but in the end remained put to Atletico. Will we see Hazard do the same at Chelsea? Time will tell. We now move over to Serie A for today's faller, and it's one of Ranieri's new charges. Some are already labelling the new Francesco Totti, and it is indeed Zaniolo. Zaniolo's gone down 14p to £4.62, and this is due to him picking up a minor injury in the weekend game in Ranieri's first match, which they won 2-1 against Empoli on Monday, but I don't expect it to be a major injury. And indeed, I'm slightly puzzled by this fall. There are actually more positives in recent weeks to negatives for Zaniolo. The first one being that Ranieri has moved in position seemingly from a winger, so he was playing outside on the wing, and he's moved him more central into that attacking number 10 role, which is far better for his PB stats, which are actually quite low for his position previously. Now, he's been linked with a whole host of clubs, and it's rumoured that Real Madrid scouted him last week in the Champions League match against Porto. However, bizarrely, or somewhat bizarrely, he was linked with a move to Newcastle United today. Now, that would soon get Newcastle United fans dreaming, but it certainly wouldn't get Football Index traders dreaming. And that's by no means a slight on Newcastle United as a club, but purely as they're not involved in Europe, they're not in one of Europe's elites, and this would be a damaging move for Zaniolo's prospect on the index. It limits his ceiling, and it certainly doesn't put him in the £6, £7, £8 bracket, which he certainly would be if he joined a Real Madrid or a Manchester United. So certainly one to monitor closely there. I do think he'll move on in the summer. As to where though, we'll have to wait and see, keeping a careful eye on it. Elsewhere on the market today, there were a few minor drops, with the market overall being a little bit down as traders possibly look to load up their cash balance ahead of Monday's share split news. One slightly strange fall though today was Isco, who fell down 11p and is now priced at £5.13. His price had recently been pushed up in the hope that he would move on in the summer, get a transfer, but I think his price is still good with Zidane going there. I think he'll be back in the team in no time, and I think Zidane will look to build the team around him once more. With this in mind, I expect him to be playing in that advanced attacking midfield role, the perfect role for Football Index for PB dividends, and I'll certainly be keeping an eye on his PB scores in the next match, with a look to be buying back in the near future. Let's head into your questions now then. And today's first question comes from Paul Parkey on Index Gain, and he asks, when you have a long-term hold, at what point do you decide to sell? Good question this, Paul, and it very much depends upon your own personal strategy. I personally only have 2 long-term holds, and those 2 players are Neymar and Paul Pogba. The reason these are my only 2 long-term holds are these are the only current 2 players that offer both strong PB and MB dividends, as well as being the right side of 30. As to when I would look to sell one of these, well, one of those categories, either the MB or the PB, would have to change. In Pogba's case, this was a change if he'd leave Manchester United and let's say he went back to Juventus. I would then look to sell before he actually finalised that move. And in Neymar's case, even harder still, maybe if he went back early to South America, which is a highly unlikely scenario. The key thing here being, Paul, that you want to diversify your portfolio. Let's say, for argument's sake, you had a portfolio of 10 players, then you'd want 2 or 3 long-term holds, 2 or 3 medium holds, 3 or 4 shorter holds, and then maybe 1 or 2 day holds, or what you'd call a flip. It all ultimately depends on what type of trader you are, Paul, whether you're a scalper, a day trader, a swinger, or even a position trader. Ultimately, for someone like myself, there'd have to be a big change in that player's circumstances for me to sell a long-term hold. Today's second question comes from Joe Hilson via email. Thanks for your email, Joe. And he had a few questions, of which the first one was, yesterday evening, Monday the 11th of March, we saw an increase in a number of different goalkeepers. Any ideas why? The reason behind this, Joe, is very much a historical reason as opposed to a rational or logical reason. Each time in the past year when there's been a deposit bonus, and we've had 3 or 4 since the start of this season in August, the week before the deposit bonus, there's always been a mad semi-rush for goalkeepers. It started originally as goalkeepers tended to have no real value on the platform. This was before G&A, so before in-play dividends. And the speculation was that each deposit bonus, there would be an announcement that the goalkeepers would feature in somehow through an MB or maybe a PB boost. This caused the markets to rise on goalkeepers each time, and hence we're seeing exactly the same thing this week round as well. So yesterday, for example, saw a rise in David De Gea of 35p. Don't be too surprised, Joe, if you see these goalkeepers fall in the next few days, and I certainly won't be buying any unless there's some dramatic, unexpected news announced on Monday. However, if you were aware of this pattern before this week, and you managed to buy a few goalkeepers last week, then it's a very good trade, and maybe look out for this next time that a deposit bonus is announced, possibly in the summer before the next new season, and you'll probably make a few pence along that trade move. That's it for this episode. You can download and subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify and Podbean. Head over to the website to send in a question, tradingbearpodcast.com. Alternatively, you can find me on Index Gain or Twitter under the name Trading Bear. Thanks for listening and stay tuned for the Mystery Player.
Mystery player. Position.
Forward.
Start price.
£1.21.
Current price.
£6.09.
PB.
18p.
MB.
0.
Dividend yield.
2.9%.
Trading bear. Today's mystery player was Nicolas Pepe.